Strong.
Don't worry, I was recording on the wrong one.
Ah, well done. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we'll crack on. Today's workshop, it won't be more than an hour. You'll be pleased to know. And as you know, we're going to be talking about how to sell CST. And when I say sell, what I mean by that is not necessarily sell it, but to get people on board when it comes to cognitive stimulation therapy. So I would like to ask you a question before we start, so we can get a bit of interaction going on. And I'm going to ask you, how confident, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel at the moment to talk to somebody about what CST is? So on a scale of 1 to 10, so just pop some numbers in the chat for me.
7.
Fab. I'll just wait for you to do that. We've got, so far, we've got an 8, fabulous. 5, 7, 7. 7, good. I mean, pretty confident. 5, but hoping to do training and get there, brilliant. 6, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask you another question then. How important do you think CST is for people living with dementia to be able to access it? So how important is access to cognitive stimulation therapy, do you feel, in your opinion? Same scale again, 1 to 10. Oh, look at this. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Yeah, even nice think so. They definitely do. Okay, Eric, 8. Yeah, 10, 10. Brilliant. So I think, you know, we're pretty much all on the same page there when it comes to what we believe about CST and whether we think it's a good thing. And you know, that's why you're here, isn't it, at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, because you believe in it. You know, we've talked about this before in our workshops. You know, you wouldn't be turning up at this time to listen to a workshop if you didn't believe in CST. And I think that's the thing that we all have in common, is the fact that we really believe that CST is good for people living with dementia. And I'm going to go into more detail about why it's good for people with dementia in a minute, because essentially what I want you to have is the confidence to be able to tell other people why you believe that. So when we look at the scale before, where you were kind of 8, we had 1 8, and then we had 5s and 7s, to see if we can get that a bit higher, so that you can feel confident in front of, well, 3 different people really, so 3 different stakeholders. So we've got people living with dementia and their carers, we'll put them as 1. We've got people who are going to refer to you. Yeah, so people who are going to refer, so those are your like community nurses and your primary care dementia practitioners, or, you know, whatever they're called in your area. They always have a different name depending how they're commissioned, but essentially, you know, your dementia specialists on the ground. And then thirdly, of course, we've got discussions with commissioners. So those of you that are running your own organizations, you might want to know how to talk to commissioners. Now, today we're really going to concentrate on the first 2. So we're going to talk about how to talk to somebody living with dementia and their carer about CST, and how to talk to referrers, because we want to make sure that there is a really good referral pathway coming into your groups. Because I hear from you when we have discussions that this is one of the biggest things, is getting referrals. I mean, if you don't have referrals coming through, you don't have a project, or you don't have a business if you're asking people to pay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I'm going to talk about today. Understanding the true value of CST. Okay, so understanding the true value of CST so that you can talk about it like a pro. We're also going to talk about the discomfort around money mixing with health. You know, we need to talk about this because it is very much there. It's the elephant in the room, and we all have feelings about it. So we have our own feelings about how we feel about charging for something that we believe should be commissioned. So we have that discomfort. The professionals that you talk to, so when we talk about having conversations with the people who are going to refer into you, if they're referring into a service which has to be paid for, then there's their discomfort in that as well. Like, how do we manage their discomfort? So yeah, those two things. So yours and other health professionals. And so I want, again, for you to be confident in having those conversations, or at least not to have the emotion around those conversations, because I know certainly for me in the beginning that was really difficult, really difficult to navigate. I'm also going to give you a process to follow. So by the end of the workshop, you'll have a nice little process that you can use when you talk to anybody who would benefit from CST, either family members or people with dementia, but a little process. You do this, and this is how you have a good conversation, which should end up in somebody coming along to your group. And then also I'm going to give you a process to follow when talking to potential referrers. So hopefully that sounds all right. I'll have a thumbs up from you if that seems like it's a good idea and that's why you're here and you're happy. I'm covering the right things. Brilliant. Okay, fab. So I know, I think I recognise most of you actually, but if you don't know me, and sorry for those of you that do, to hear me say it again, but just to kind of, for you to understand who I am talking to you today, I'm co-founder of Memory Matters Southwest, which is a community interest company set up 11 years ago with myself and my sister-in-law, and we have the belief that people living with dementia can thrive, and I am an absolute CST nut and I want to see CST everywhere in all communities for everybody living with dementia, because I think it's a fabulous tool, a simple tool to use for people. And part of our drive is to help other organisations like yourself or individuals to be able to provide it in their community, among many other things. We also run a city centre cafe in Plymouth as well, which was designed by people living with dementia for people living with dementia. Anyone who wants to know more about that, you can contact either myself or Shania. And Shania will give you a little wave as my right-hand woman. So yeah, any conversation that you want to have. So Eric, yes, the answer to this is yes, we are talking about early stage dementia. So cognitive stimulation therapy is a therapy which is designed for people with mild to moderate dementia. So it isn't suitable for people in the more sort of moderate to later stages of dementia. Okay, just to answer that question. Is everybody familiar with CST? Can you put your hand up if you know what CST is? Fabulous, brilliant. Okay, just checking. Right, now I'm going to share my screen and everything's going to go really smoothly. Power of positive thinking. I'm not going to share that screen though, because that's the wrong one. See what I mean? Positive thinking worked, didn't it? Okay. How to sell CST, is that what you're seeing? Yes, yes, thank you, Shania. This is the bit I hate. I never seem to be able to get this smooth. Okay. All right, let's start from the beginning. All right, so as I mentioned to you, these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about today. I won't read them again because I've just told you. So let's start with the first one, understanding the true value of CST so that you can talk about it like a pro. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to do a bit of an overview of CST.
Laura,
yeah.
can I ask please, is it possible to get a copy of these slides?
Of course, I can make that happen. Well, I say Shania, will make that happen.
Yeah, I'll send them across to you first thing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Fantastic. Okay, so So let's have a look. So yeah, sorry, I'll go back to where I was. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a bit of an overview of why CST is great in terms of the evidence base, because I'd like for you to be able to talk about it. And then what we'll do is we'll have a little breakout time, and we're going to put you into pairs and see what you can remember about it. I mean, of course, you can take notes, and just have a go at talking about CST with what you know about it. So I'm sure you already know that 850,000 people are estimated to be living with dementia in the UK. It's a big number and it's rising. And we also know that dementia is a devastating diagnosis. However, and this is the bit, isn't it, about CST? There happens to be this program that's been shown to reduce loneliness, increase thinking skills and language skills, and improve quality of life for people who attend. Now, it's also really important, because I haven't mentioned it anywhere else, about the weekly check-ins that take place in CST. Okay, so the fact that people who are coming along to see us every week or twice a week, there is that ability to be able to check up on people. We know when they're not quite right, where they might have an infection, they might not be having conversations like they normally do. There may be something that you can't put your finger on, which you can flag up to your to the dementia professional who's looking after them. So not only does CST do all the things that I'm about to talk about, but also this check-in is really worth something too. Now, 85% of people want to stay at home for as long as possible after receiving a diagnosis of dementia. But only 47% believe this is possible. And that's because of the public perception of dementia, and it needs some work. So let's have a look at the first trial of CST. And it was a large scale trial, 201 people with dementia living in care homes or attending day centres. There are 23 centres involved, and the outcome was significant improvements in the group that had CST compared to the usual care control group. So 2 groups running. One's the control group, so they just have care as usual, whatever that might be. That might be, your usual things that happen in a day centre, a bit of bingo, a bit of singing. And then the other group received CST. And what they found is that general cognitive functioning, language comprehension, and quality of life were all affected in a good way. So the treatment groups improved on average by 0.9 points, and the controls deteriorated by 0.4. So you can see how that is very significant in terms of cognition. And what was great about this first trial was, because it was a randomized controlled trial, it was comparable. So we could compare it to research in the anti-dementia drugs that were available. And of course, what it found, or not of course, but surprisingly, I guess, what it found was that it was as effective. So as effective as the anti-dementia drugs that are currently available, and yet far, far cheaper. And then maintenance CST. So just to recap, so that we're sure we're talking about the same thing. So the first part is the 14 sessions of cognitive stimulation therapy, which would have been provided over 7 weeks, so twice a week. That's the first trial that I've just talked about. And then maintenance sessions take place after that. So that's 24 sessions after the first 14. So again, a large trial, 237 people were evaluated in the same way. And they were compared with a treatment as usual group. That's what the TAU stands for, treatment as usual. A third of the sample were on dementia medication, as well as having CST in this one. And what they found was that, again, there were significant improvements in quality of life. However, with cognition, it wasn't, there was an improvement, but it was no longer significant. Okay, So now the reasoning for that, or the reason they think behind that, is the fact that in the first trial, we were talking about 14 sessions over 7 weeks. So 7 weeks, you could see a massive increase. But now we're talking over 6 months. That's a long time. And that's a long time in the life of somebody living with dementia who we know is likely to deteriorate. That said, the fact that quality of life went up is really significant and really important. And you can also imagine, can't you, coming along to a session for coming along to a program for 14 sessions, seeing the difference in people, and then not having anything to follow up would, I guess, be quite devastating. We've certainly seen that in funded groups where there are no groups following up. So there's really good evidence in continuing CST beyond that initial program. And what we also know, and I think this is becoming very clear, is that it's very unlikely that maintenance sessions are really ever going to be commissioned. So hopefully it's likely that those first 14 sessions would be commissioned. It really does depend where you live at the moment. But those maintenance sessions, that continuation, and people can continue for a long, long time, way past the 24 sessions actually, because you can repeat again. And we've certainly done that in our programs, where we've had people come along for over 2 years and still benefiting from coming along. So it's no surprise to see that it ends up in the NICE guidelines, and it's to offer group cognitive stimulation therapy to people living with mild to moderate dementia. That's it. Just, that's it. People should have it. So we know that it's got a significant positive effect on people living with dementia. And, we could all get really excited about this, couldn't we? And say, oh, yeah, it's in the NICE guidelines. So, everyone will be able to get it, but it's just not happening quick enough for my liking anyway. When we're talking about the evidence of CST, like any research, it could be a little bit dry, can't it? Add in your own evidence as well. Okay, so you've got always use the randomized controlled trials because it's the best evidence that we have, but also use your own evidence. So this is our evidence from our 3 years of reaching communities, where we measured a few other things as well. We found that 78% of participants increased or maintained their cognitive function, but also we scored loneliness too. So 70% were less lonely, and 96% said that they'd made new friends. 2/3 had improved mood, and we saw the same as the trials. The quality of life improved for 73% of beneficiaries, and 66% of people reported becoming less dependent or maintained relative independence throughout. So always add your own bits of evidence as well, and how important it is to always evaluate. So we're not just relying on the randomized controlled trial, but you're also saying, look, we're seeing the same thing when we provide it locally. And then always tell stories as well. So, like I said, it's a bit dry, isn't it? Coming up with all these percentages and numbers. But when we talk about, Susan, who was apprehensive and shy, she rarely left the house. She was isolated and socially withdrawn. She wasn't mixing with friends. And her family wanted her to come along. She didn't want to come along. Her family thought it would be a good idea for her to come along and cajoled her to come. Mm-hmm. And I remember a colleague of mine, we do a session using iPads, and everybody had an iPad. And we gave Susan an iPad, and she burst into tears because it was so overwhelming for her to touch this and do that. Too much. She was overwhelmed, and remember thinking, oh my goodness, we've not done this well. She won't want to come back. But she did. And she did come back. And over the weeks, she became really friendly with some of the other women in the group. And she started to find her voice. And she talked way more than she did when she first came. And we saw it in front of our eyes. We saw the difference in Susan. And then, because part of the project was that we would introduce people to other things in their area. So we introduced them to, we have the sensory trust down here who run walking groups. So we introduced her and her husband to the walking groups, and she started going to the walking groups, and she met more friends. And as the weeks progressed, you know, the peer support within the group, which really, you know, we don't have any measurement for that necessarily, but the peer support had been there to help her to begin to thrive. Her confidence went up. It was palpable. Her speech was more fluent. And this sense of humor was completely uncovered. You know, she had the whole group laughing like you wouldn't believe. And, you know, that's not what we saw on that first day or those first couple of times that she came along. So tell those stories when you're talking to people. Tell those stories, tell those differences that you see from cognitive stimulation therapy. The key principles, and I know I bang on about these. If you've ever been to my workshops before, you'll know that I keep banging on about the principles. But I could, you know, when I'm talking to somebody about CST, I could say, well, here are the key principles. You know, there's mental stimulation. We encourage new ideas, new thoughts, new associations. We stimulate memory. We orientate people to time and place. We validate by encouraging opinions, not facts. But the answer to that is, so what? You know, so think about what's the point of what you're talking about. And one of the key things that I learned really early on is to use the term "so that." Okay, so we create mental stimulation so that people can create new connections. One of the analogies that I use time and time again, and you're very welcome to borrow it, is the forest fire, where you imagine a massive forest of trees, and you've got a fire at one end of the forest. You think of the fire as dementia, and the trees as our brain cells, if you like. And this fire is raging its way through. And although we can't stop the fire, we can't put the fire out, we can't necessarily stop dementia, what we can do is plant more trees. And that's what cognitive stimulation therapy does. This mental stimulation is around, can we plant more trees? Can we create more connections by helping people to think differently? And that's what we're doing, because of course, the more connections that there are more to burn through. So that's one way to talk about mental stimulation. Now, using terminology like that, it just gives people a picture rather than just, you know, facts. We use mental stimulation. So what? What does that even mean? So we encourage new ideas, thoughts, and associations so that people experience the process of learning again. And we all love to learn, don't we? Whether we remember what we've learned or not, we love to go through the process of learning. Hopefully that's why you're here with me this evening, because you love to learn, you like to learn more. And then another example is that, you know, we're stimulating memory so that people can reconnect with their identity. So when you're thinking about how to talk to people about CST, use that term, so that. And another thing that's really helpful is to ask yourself, so what? So, you know, any of you, if you're putting a business plan together or anything, think about, so what? Why would someone care? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. And I think what we'll do, how is time?
Laura, you've got a question.
Oh.
It's from Eleanor. What tool did you use to measure outcomes?
In loneliness, or all of them? Do you want to take your mic off?
All.
Yeah, okay, so we use the QOLAD, so QOLAD, so that's Alzheimer's disease is the AD, so quality of life Alzheimer's disease. We used when we did cognition, we don't do cognition anymore, because we have done it for so long and we've seen the progression for so long that we don't feel we need to put people through that, because CST is really about not asking tricky questions, and then by doing one of those mini mental tests or ACE mini tests we actually used to use. Yeah, we just feel like it's just not appropriate. That's not to say that you wouldn't, and it's really dependent on your funders the lottery, who funded us for our first 3 years, really wanted us to show cognition, but we managed to get away with our next 3 years of funding. We managed to get away with not having to measure cognition, because we said we know it works, but we wanted to look at loneliness, and we used, are you asking me, the Campaign to End Loneliness score. If you have problems finding it, just ask me and I'll send it across. I think you've probably got my email address, or you can contact Shania. And then in terms of how did we measure, let me just have a look at what I just talked about so that I can see. Yeah, so loneliness, yeah, improved mood. So we just used one of the scores from the quality of life. So because it's broken down to, I think it's got 14 questions, and one of them is about how do you feel in yourself, or something like that. So we used that question to look at mood. And the same with the dependence and finding independence, that was in the quality of life as well. So actually it was the same tool, we just used some specific questions to measure. Is that okay? Does that answer your question, Eleanor? Brilliant, thank you. Great, okay, so what we'll do now, if we can, Shania, is put people into pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, we're an even number. And then just literally not much time at all. So I reckon 3 minutes. So we'll give you 6 minutes in the room. So I want you in your pair to take 3 minutes each, okay? And I just want you to talk to the other person as if they've not heard of CST before, and you've got to convince them in that first 3 minutes as to why CST would be so good for their loved one who is experiencing mild to moderate dementia. Okay, so I want you to take on that challenge. You know, it's a bit of fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you to kind of, you take a few points from what I told you, and then just say it like it is. Say why you think that person would be really good. It would be really good for them. Okay.
So we've got one group of 3.
Okay, brilliant.
That's pairs. Ready?
Count properly. See you in 6 minutes.
Oh, we got a minute.
Do you want to stop recording? Lovely. Or only 2 of you have popped back. Where are the rest of them? What's happened to them?
16 seconds.
Oh, it's like a countdown. There's Eric. Irene.
Yes.
Hi.
Breakout
Okay.
room. Yeah.
I love this bit where everyone just pings in. Great.
Who's that with a lovely blue sky behind her?
And Melanie.
I'm in the garden.
And why not? Lovely. Good. Are we all back?
Yep.
Fabulous. How did that go then? Does anyone want to be brave and feedback and tell me how they found it?
Well, I thought Eric was very good.
Well, thank you. I think the thing is, I don't know if Laura would agree with this. Sometimes you can tell people too much, and you can go on and on and on. And if you don't have a set of finely tuned nuggets,
Yeah.
You can almost like sell CST there and then. But I suppose what you're doing is you wanted to actually sell the concept, the tip of the iceberg.
You know, nothing sells CST really like coming along and experiencing it. And I always say that if you can get people in to a group, and that's why we always have, you know, whatever project we're running, we will always have the invitation to just come and experience it. And and it's interesting how some people, and it really does depend who you talk to, some people want to know why it's good for them and why they should come along, and other people are really happy just to know that they're going to come along and have a really good time. But do you feel like you have sort of more in your arsenal to be able to describe why CST is good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good. That's good. It's good to check in. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about was the discomfort around money. So mixing money with health. How many of you, if I can have a show of hands, how many of you are either working in an organisation where you're needing to charge for CST, or if you're not at the moment, that your intention is to in the future?
No.
Okay. Sorry, can you put them up again? Sorry, because I couldn't see. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So Valerie and Julie, you're not charging. Is that right?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay.
I might in the future. I'm just not sure.
Okay, and that's because you're running a funded project. Is that right?
No, I'm working in a completely different environment. I have used CST in the past, but I'm not at the moment.
Okay, brilliant.
I'm
Okay.
a volunteer, so I've just started volunteering for a memory cafe.
Okay.
So they've asked me to be a facilitator, so that's why. But I used to be a psychology teacher, so so I'm hoping this will help.
Brilliant. And what about Liz?
We don't charge either. Sorry, I disappeared. My computer just completely shut down, so I missed about 7 minutes or something. Yeah,
Oh dear.
totally went. No, we don't charge either. It's a charity called Families Matter, and that's a part of it. So we're lucky enough to get funding from the church.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Yeah, it's just good to know where you are with this, and I hope that those of you that aren't charging are happy to kind of have this conversation, because I still think it's a really important conversation to have, particularly in terms of going forward. If you don't have funding, you know, that decision as to whether you will provide it anyway. And we've certainly been there. So at the moment, we're really lucky. We've got funding from the big lottery. As I mentioned, that funding runs out in March 2022. So for the last 6 years, we've been in a really lovely position where we haven't had to charge. However, saying that, we have run day clubs which have been based on CST, a full day for people to come along and have CST. They have a lunch together, and do sessions like a live well session, talking about how they can live well with dementia. Sorry, I'm just going to shut the door because someone playing football outside. A little bit distracting. Okay. So we totally have been in a position where, you know, we have had to have conversations about, you know, how much things will be, and we do provide some services at the moment that are paid for. And I've been through a real journey with this. So, you know, I'm a nurse. I've come from an NHS background. It doesn't sit nicely. It doesn't sit well to say, you know, I've got this treatment that I can offer you. It's going to cost X amount of money. It just doesn't, culturally, it doesn't feel right for us, does it? Because, you know, everybody here is from the UK. We're used to having health treatments for free. Not only that, but there's also this almost like, for me, certainly, I feel angry about it. I feel like it should be free. I feel like it should be commissioned, that people with dementia should be able to access this for free. Now, I've been feeling angry about it for years, and nothing's really changed. I mean, we've had some funding to be able to provide it. We've had conversations with commissioners, and they say it's brilliant. We really want people with dementia to come along to your groups, but we don't have the money. We don't have the funding for it. So what I realise is that this is a big battle. It's a big hill that we need to climb. But whilst we're climbing that hill and having this battle, it felt to me like we were denying people with dementia who could pay the ability to get the treatment. Now, however you feel about that, there are emotions that come up for us, definitely. So as I mentioned to you at the beginning, we have our own emotions to get over. So we have to almost get out of our own way when it comes to money. The first time that a health professional says to you, well, I don't think you should be charging, if we're feeling that way too, then we're not going to get anywhere in that conversation. And I've been there so many times of, oh my God, I feel really terrible for charging, but I have to. And I'm almost having to make an excuse, you know, saying, well, you know, we've got overheads and we have to pay for the for the church room and we have to pay for our time. I've stopped doing that now because I've realized that it's really unhelpful in the conversation. And there's something about like really stepping up and saying, unless it's commissioned, there is a cost. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a really lovely way of saying this, and I'm going to just show you how we tackle it. I'll share my screen again. And we say this because it's true. We believe that your treatment provided us should be funded by the NHS, but that is a decision for your local clinical commissioning group, okay? In the absence of this funding, we can offer you this service privately. You can choose if it's something that you would like to invest in. Now, I'd just like to get your ideas and thoughts on that. When you read that, what are your thoughts?
I think it's quite an empowering statement. Very helpful.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because that pushes all my buttons, Laura, about charging. And I have exactly those conversations. You've got to cover costs. And then it starts to sound quite petty. And I really don't like that, as if you're justifying. And also it sounds like it's not as professional in the sense that it's not commissioned. So that sentence for me, I want to write it down because I think it's true, and I think it's about an investment and there is a cost. So yeah, brilliant.
Okay, well, as I said to you, Shania will send you these slides so that you're very welcome to use it. I really like it. I really like it. And it's where I've managed to sit now in a place of, you know, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses about why we charge. Of course we charge. We've all got to charge, haven't we? We have to, because we can't do this for free. Now, when I first started Memory Matters, believe you me, I was doing a hell of a lot for free for many years. It's not sustainable. It's you know, it's not sustainable. It's not scalable. It's just and Eleanor, I think you know, you hit the nail on the head when you say, you know, it starts to sound a little unprofessional as well, doesn't it? When we're kind of making these sort of excuses about it. You know, we're professionals. We know what we're doing. We're providing a valued service. You know, I've just, as you know, we've just kind of looked at why it's great. It's, you know, whatever you're charging, I can promise you that it's cheap. I know that for a fact. It's about, you know, investing in ourselves and then thinking about that person with dementia. Very often we can think, oh, but they've got dementia and it's not their fault they've got dementia and they shouldn't have to pay. Those thoughts are just really unhelpful. And we, you know, it is just about kind of stepping up. And I think, again, you know, I say this all the time to you, but I really do believe in us having a community that pulls together. And when we're all pulling together and all the organizations and individuals that are providing CST are coming from the same song sheet and saying the same thing, then I think we're taken more seriously too. And we say, well, you know, it is a treatment and it is going to be provided professionally. And this is how much it is. End of story. But we do have to park all that stuff. So Eleanor, when you were saying about it pressing all your buttons, I totally get it. I totally get it because I was there and I've done a lot of work to get myself past that. Believe you me, it's almost like money is this massive taboo, isn't it? And particularly when we really believe, I really believe that it should be commissioned. And that's why I love that statement, because it says that is what we believe, but I have no control over that. I can't, you know, that is down to your clinical commissioning group in your area. And it just kind of takes the onus off you of being this nasty person who's expecting money for something. Okay, so how's everyone feeling? Like, talk to me about it.
AI?
Yeah.
So
Irish.
I'm not in the UK. I'm a Brazilian, and I'm in Brazil.
So exciting. I'm sorry that I assumed you were all in the UK.
No problem. But what I wanted to say, that's a really cultural matter, because here we have private public systems and public health system, sorry, and public ones, which is a really good public health system, is the second better in the world, only lost for the UK, of course, one. And if I don't charge for my private clients, I cannot have I cannot offer CST. And in the same way, if I charge for people from the public health system, I cannot help them because they cannot pay. So it's a puzzle, not a easy solving puzzle, but it's a puzzle that we have to solve here. CST is a very new program in Brazil. We are implementing that in my university now. And I think we have to balance always. We will have to charge for people that can pay, but we also have to get money from somewhere to offer CST without charging for people that cannot.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that for all of us is the ideal, isn't it? And I think that's where social enterprise is so great. So for us as an example, what our business plan is in the future is to be providing privately at a cost that people would expect to pay for a 14-week treatment, and then that the profits of that go into providing in the local area that we live in where people can't afford it. And that, you know, again, that's another one of my my loves is social enterprise and how that works and how we can move money around, almost like it's a bit like Robin Hood, isn't it? The rich pay and those that can't afford get subsidized. And we use subsidization in some of our day clubs where people really couldn't pay. I mean, you do go with your heart, of course you do, and you can see that you can help somebody. But you also need to cover your overheads. There's no doubt about it. Good. Okay. So as I said, you know, Shania will send you the slides, so you'll have that statement, which is quite a useful statement to use. Now, I'm just going to talk you through very quickly, because I've just realized it's 10:02, very quickly, a process to follow in the conversations with people that you know would benefit. So again, I'm going to share my screen. And this again is a process that works really for everything, but it works particularly well for CST. So the process in the conversation would be obviously appropriate sociability. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build this know, like, and trust factor. Now, people will buy from you if they know you, if they like you, and if they trust you, okay? So in that first part of the conversation where you're asking somebody, hi, what's the weather like there? How are you doing? What did you do this morning? Let's have a chat. It's light conversation where we are trying to get them to, you know, get to know us a little bit, and we're getting to know them. The small talk, if you like. And then we take control of the conversation. So we set the agenda. So in doing this, I would say, you know, what we're going to do is I'm going to find out a bit about you and where you are right now and how things are going and what your challenges are. I'm going to ask you a few questions just to clarify what we offer is the right fit for you. And if it is, then I will tell you about what we offer. Okay. So, so the person doesn't feel that they're just kind of being funneled into this, you know, I'm going to tell you what CST is and you will like it, but we're really going to listen to what they have to say. So they might want to tell you that they're struggling a little bit, you know, that their loved one has just had a diagnosis of dementia. They're not really sure where to turn or what would be good for them. In the questions that I would ask are the questions around whether that person is suitable for CST. So the questions that we would ask is, are they able to concentrate long enough for an hour? Can they hear well enough? Or if they can't hear well enough, will they wear hearing aids to be able to hear what's going on in the group? are they able to manage their own personal care? Obviously, if you're running from a community room, you don't want to be supporting somebody with going to the loo, but also, most importantly, we found that those two things kind of go together. So where somebody is no longer, because of their dementia, able to manage their own personal care, it's very likely that they don't fit the remit for cognitive stimulation therapy within a group environment. So I would be asking those questions just to check that they fit the remit. So when we set the agenda, we always ask if that's okay, always ask permission. And then, you know, that's what we're doing, is we're trying to see the world through their eyes, and then we reveal the program at the end. And remember those "so that" sentences that we talked about. So this is what we do in CST. We help people to I can't think of one now. We use stimulating language, and that is so that people find it easier for word finding, as an example. That wasn't a very good example. So yeah, so basically that's the process, and then we reveal the program at the end, and then we will tell them how much it is. So we will talk then about the price. The one trick to talk about here, well, it's not really a trick, but to say is, you know, once you've been through the reveal and you tell them what CST is to then say, so is this something that you would be interested in before you come to the money part? Is this something you'd be interested in? So if they say yes, then you can then go on to this is how much it will cost. If they say no, then you can go back and just check that they've understood or that you've covered everything that you need to. Okay, so that's the process talking to a loved one or somebody with dementia. The process for referrers is exactly the same. Obviously, you can do it slightly differently, but you will go with, so I'm just going to go back to the slide again. So think about the referrers. You're still going to do appropriate sociability because they need to know, like, and trust you. You're still going to set the agenda around what you do. So just remember that their challenges are going to be different to someone with dementia's challenges. So their challenges might be, you know, I've got all these people with dementia on my caseload and I've got nowhere to refer them, or there's nowhere that I trust to refer them. And I hear this time and time again. I don't know, a referrer will say to me, I don't know what that provision is like. I don't know if it's a good provision, so I can't refer. And that's your job, is to make sure that they know, like, and trust your provision. So it is about, the reason that people won't refer to you is because they don't know you, they don't like you, or they don't trust you, or all three of them. So your job really is to really find out who those referrers are. And we've learned this over time. If you have one good dementia practitioner that refers into you, you can have like 10, 20 referrals just from that one practitioner. So it's better to make really good relationships with those community practitioners so that they know, like, and trust you. And if you just know 2 or 3 that know, like, and trust you, then that's often enough. You don't have to wine and dine everybody. And the last thing to say is, if you're not having conversations, you're not going to get referrals. I hear time and time again where people say, we're just not getting referrals through. And I'll ask, well, what are you doing? Well, we've put leaflets in the doctor's surgery, and we've put leaflets in the library. Leaflets are not going to get you referrals because they don't know you. They don't necessarily like you because they don't know you. And they certainly won't trust you because they don't know how good your provision is, which is why you need to be getting invited to as many team meetings as you can go to. And you need to use the information that I've given you about what CST is and why it's good, and tell stories. So tell the story about Jack, who you met, who didn't want to come along, and then he loved it. And there was a big difference and change in him. So does that make sense? Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Good. And I'm sorry it's felt a bit rushed. I seem to have crammed quite a lot into this one. While I've got you, and before you go, obviously I know that a lot of you already know about our fellowship program. I'm not going to do a big reveal about it now, but I just want to talk about it. If you don't know about our fellowship program and you'd like to know about it, please get in touch with Shania. I'm about to go on annual leave, but Shania isn't. So Shania, if you can put your email address in the chat. The fellowship program is a 6-month program where we will support you essentially to start your own project or business running cognitive stimulation therapy in your own community. And we're really excited. It starts in September. It's on a Monday afternoon, and you get everything. If we've got it, you can have it. So literally right the way through from what I've shown you today in terms of phrases and things that you can use, right the way through to protocols, procedures, risk assessments, session plans, you name it. Everything that we've used over the last 11 years is yours to use. So if you're interested, do get in touch with Shania, and she will set up an appointment. And she's just put the link in there of the fellowship on the Memory Matters page as well. So do have a look at that. And what else was I going to say? Please, if you haven't already, get into our CST facilitators group on Facebook as well. So we have mini workshops in there every single week where I'll do like 15 minutes on a topic. And you are very welcome to contact me and say, tell me about that. And we'll do it. We'll do a 15-minute workshop. Likewise with the 1-hour workshops as well, which we do usually every month to 6 weeks, I think. Again, you know, I'm responding to what you've told me. This workshop today has been built around, you know, what facilitators have told me that they want to know about. How do I sell CST? How do we put that across? So we're running out of time. It's 6:59, 7 o'clock. Lovely to see you all. Do get in touch, and we love to chat. So just chat with us. Have a Zoom call with us. And have conversations with us. We love to hear from you and love to hear what you're doing, what you're up to, what you're planning. And if we can help you, we would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And have a lovely holiday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, enjoy.